Hello everyone. Today we are going to have a look at the theatre of the mind combat, or combat without miniatures. So I just want to stress that these rules are in alpha. I do not feel like I've play tested these enough. While I'm quite happy with them, I still feel like there's a bit of a room for tweaking there. So this is the style of combat that is much more narrative based, just rolling, no miniatures, no battle grids. You don't even need this. It's a lot faster, it's a lot dirtier, and it is different. But it's useful for those types of players who don't want to play with miniatures in their RPG, but it's also useful for those who do like to use miniatures. Because these rules are a lot faster, they enable GMs to push through some combats that aren't necessarily less important, but they don't want to spend as much time on. So let's say the players get into a bar fight. You don't want to put down miniatures for that. You could just use these simple rules here, go through, talk about how it goes, make some dice rolls, and then that determines how it went. So let's walk through how you do it. So to start off, the GM sets the difficulty and the scene. So the GM describes the bar, they describe the antagonist that you're against, and what the players have on hand, and anything important like low light or anything like that. Then you go around the table and each player takes turns explaining their approach, and they will have a skill. They'll roll on a skill that matches their approach. So let's say they've got a gun, they pull their gun out, which we probably won't do in a bar fight, but just for the sake of it. So I pull my pistol out, and they describe who they're aiming at, and they shoot. Then the GM says, okay, we're using a pistol, it's a small arms roll. So they'll use their small arms skill and roll 3d6. Okay. But let's say they're going to be more tactical. Okay, they're going to say, okay, I'm diving under a table, I'm going to slowly work my way around behind the enemy to position myself for an attack next turn. So then the GM says, that's more of a tactical approach. So use the tactical skill. Now, keep in mind that you actually still need the right tools on hand to use certain skills. So tactical is good because you don't really need any tools to do that, but it does require some creative thinking. But a skill like small arms or heavy arms, you're actually going to need a weapon to do that. Now the GM will apply a plus up to a +2 or down to a -2 penalty based on your description and whether you're at some sort of an advantage or disadvantage relative to your opponent. And just like normal skills, if you roll a 6, this can be used for special strong hit effects. You just have to beat the difficulty. So let's say it's a 12, they roll, they get that, plus their bonuses, whatever they may have, and if they get a 12, it counts as a success. But if they fail that roll, they take attribute damage, and they roll a d6 to determine what attribute is damaged, just like in normal miniature combat. So a roll of a 1, strength. Strength would take 2 points of damage. And just like in normal combat, you die if any attribute reaches -5. But you should also take your attribute damage into account. So let's say you take some movement damage and you're describing how you're approaching something, and you say, okay, you're going to sneak under those tables and around behind your opponent. If you take a movement damage, then the GM is probably going to give you a penalty because you're not playing to your strengths and you're not, and you've got some sort of impairment. Okay, so as you can tell, the GM makes no rolls, it's all the players. As soon as you've gone through all players around the table, then you do it again. And you'll keep going around the table and each person taking turns describing what they're doing until the number of successes equals twice the number of players. But that doesn't mean that each player needs to make 2 successes. So let's say you've got 3 players, you would need 6 requests, six successes. So let's say the first player, he gets 3 successes, the next player gets 2 successes, and the third player only gets 1 success, then it would be victory. Also, it's important to keep in mind that the final success must be an attack of some kind. Then, after all of that, the GM describes the result. So, the reason that I've done Theatre of the Mind combat like this is because I really want to play to the narrative side. It's all about talking, and you really want a group that really enjoys that style of role-playing, that really getting into it and describing the nitty-gritty.